Nimi Nathan Graner, który...
People killing, people dying, children hurt, pain, and crying. When you practice what you preach, would you play?
Hey everybody, Nathan Graner here. This is my real life. I'm an opera singer. I'm an operatic tenor. And you may have heard of me from a number of different projects over the course of my career, which has spanned about 30 plus years now. Right now, I am in Detroit, Michigan, performing the role of Corey Wise in the Central Park Five. The Central Park Five is first performed in 2019. It won the Pulitzer Prize in Music by Anthony Davis and Richard Wesley. It is a new opera. A lot of times you'll look at an opera and it'll be a Mozart piece or Puccini or Verdi or something written in the 1800s. 1700s, 1600s. There's a lot of opera out there. I'm performing Corey Wise, one of the 5 of the Central Park Five, who are now known as the Exonerated Five, rightfully so. Some of them were his friends, some of them that he never really met. We're playing in Central Park. Corey, Yusuf, Raymond, Antron, and Kevin were put in interrogation rooms. They were kept there for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. What had happened also in Central Park that night was a woman was attacked, brutally raped, and left for dead in the park. So while these boys were picked up for just being boys and they, whatever was going to happen to them was going to happen to them from that, they were then accused of this crime. There was no parent with them. There were no lawyers. They were conscripted to sign confessions that they were told of crimes that they just thought up. It's really, really heinous. Friends, we have a great legal system here in the United States of America. When it works, it is fantastic. But the system is also built to not work for all people equally. Well, if you look at the amount of incarcerations in the United States of America, it is disproportionately geared to put brown people, BIPOC people, minorities in jail and keep them there for quite some time. Anyway, so these kids were pushed into signing these confessions, except for Yusuf Salaam, never confessed to anything. They pretty much immediately recanted when they found out of what they were actually confessing to. They didn't even know what they were confessing to. They were just told some things, and then they were like, oh yeah, I'll confess to this. And then they found out what they had confessed to. Crazy, huh? Corey, my character, spent 13 years in Auburn prison and in Rikers. I think he was in Rikers for a little bit as well. The other boys were sentenced to juvenile facility for 6 years. April 19th, 1989, when this atrocity happened, and then when the kids were arrested and also facing their own atrocities. I was in Kansas City as a young kid, oblivious to all things bad. I mean, I heard of the crime all the way in Kansas City as a kid. I heard of it, definitely was like watching the news. I think 2020 did a report and we were avid 2020 watchers, and it was like, whoa, that's terrible. Whoa, that's terrible. These kids were picked up and they're all black. Like all of this happened. Heard about the newspaper articles coming. I'm like, wow, that's really weird. I didn't really know how much it affected me, but it certainly did. And right now, there's this amazing opera about it. Premiering this piece, premiering the Central Park Five, it's quite an experience unto its own. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. We're gonna take a break. We'll be right back to talk about the experience of being in the premiere of the Central Park Five and then coming back to it after 6 years. Welcome back. Thanks so much for sticking around. I'm in this opera, the Central Park Five, here in Detroit, Michigan, at Detroit Opera. Amazing opera company. Premiering the Central Park Five in Long Beach with Long Beach Opera was it was heavy. It was serious. I've been in new operas before, you know. The Invention of Morel by Stuart Copeland, Today It Rains by Laura Kaminsky, just to name a few. I've done a lot of stuff, performed new pieces, but this one, it changed my life. I will never go back to being the person I was then. And it's not like I'm ignorant about any, you know, racial issues in America. I'm very much a brown person, you know. I'm a BIPOC person, and face my own share of inequities, you know. But nothing like these guys, and nothing like so many people in this country face every single day, every single year. So to perform a piece that is not only a serious piece, but talking about issues that we have right now in America was special. It was an honor, and it continues to be so. Even if I were never in another production of the Central Park Five, and I do hope there are more, it is such an important story to tell here in America. Extremely proud and honored to have been in that cast with my wonderful friends and colleagues that were in that show. I met a man named Gary Tyler, who had been imprisoned for 40 years for a crime he could not have committed. He was in New Orleans. He was in a bus. Somebody shot into the bus. He was picked up, arrested, arraigned, and then just thrown away. He lived on death row for 20 years. It was impossible for him to have done that. So he spent 20 years on death row. He spent another 20 years in just prison. And then finally he won a case that reduced his sentence enough so that he could just go free. It didn't exonerate him, it just let him go. There are so many people in jail right now because of that, and I think this opera is important to have people know that this happens in America. And how it happens is that we have a great legal system when it works. And it does work. It works really, really well. But it's also a system. And any system can be hacked. Any system can be used for a purpose if you have enough resources to be able to work the system. That's why they call it work in the system, right? So this opera is about these five boys being worked in the system. This woman was brutally raped, and at the time, you know, we were looking to end misogyny, to end violence done onto women. So that was a huge thing at the time, and very progressive. But man, they kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater with that. To fix a problem that we were having on one side, they decided to make things worse for other people. And it's a real problem. This opera really walks you through the system by which these kids were cajoled and worse into signing their confessions that they soon thereafter recounted when they found out what they were actually confessing to. They were in interrogation rooms, no parents, no lawyers, hours and hours and hours, sleep deprived food, and of course, you know, you're dealing with minors here who aren't really. I mean, you know, you could be the smartest person in the world, but if you're 14, 15, 16, what are you going to do when some adult tells you that you need to sign this and this is how you're going to get home, right? So this system works its way through. It works on these kids. They go to court. They are sent to prison. You see them 7 years later for the juveniles. who were sent to prison, and then Corey Wise 13 years. Only after this fella, Matias Reyes, actually admitted to the crime, his DNA matched. He knew exactly how the crime was committed. He had committed another crime. He was in jail with Corey at the same time in Rikers. So, man, that's what this opera is about. For me to be in that and to be a part of trying to create equal justice here in this country is a big issue for me. I mean, I'm somewhat of an activist. I will post things, but only factual stuff. I'm only into fact stuff. And this is a factual problem that we have. One thinks of opera as being about olden times, but no, opera can be about today. And that's such a great thing. And here we are in Detroit doing this remount. This is a production that was created for Portland Opera. The orchestra has been expanded. There's a lot of really actually cool new things in this particular piece for Detroit Opera that we didn't get to or didn't have the chance to do in Portland Opera about 3 years ago. So coming back to it, it is wow. Okay, so we're gonna take another break, and then I'll talk to you about what it's like coming back to a production such as this. Okay? See you in a sec. Everybody, welcome back. This is part 3, talking about what it's like coming back to a role such as the Central Park Five, Corey Wise in the Central Park Five. What it's like coming back to a role after premiering the piece, getting to be in another production, coming back for a third time. Especially in a work like this, Pulitzer Prize winning opera, The Central Park Five, by Anthony Davis, an amazing score, an amazing piece of literature, for sure deserved to win the Pulitzer Prize. That's the one thing that I look at when I'm coming back to this piece. We start out the opera with Thelonious Monk, and it just sounds like 1950s Harlem, you know? It sounds like the jazz age meeting blues with Thelonious Monk. And then the boys come in, the five, and we have these really tight harmonies, like Take Six type harmonies. You can like mix jazz and blues with close harmonies and R&B harmonies. Soon inside the opera, you get some Parliament. You get like some actual funk. But it all kind of comes unraveling. And what Anthony does with Richard Wesley's words is like he likes this strident, angular atonality in it. It's like if you go to a museum and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to the Monets. You know, that's what I'm going to do. I love Picasso. Then you're like looking at Picasso and you're like, why, what is happening? Like this picture here is Picasso. Check this thing out, right? It's a still life. A lot of people think of a still life as just like, there's a bowl, some cherries, some oranges, some water droplets on it, some flowers, and like a rabbit like lying there. And Picasso, after Impressionism, and like Monet could not see. So he was like, he and his school, they were painting how light, and Van Gogh, how light reflects. And they were painting the reflection. Do you know why? Because we had photography that was being invented, right? So we had photography, which meant the painters were like, what am I going to do? And so painters, well, here, I'm going to paint what the light does on these objects. Cubism comes around, and it's just like, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to like paint all the angles at the same time. So here's my face, And then also here's my face. And it's just like, bop, bop, cool. This is what Davis does. He like puts really cool elements together. This is postmodern. Postmodernism for me is like where you have different styles. You have jazz, you have blues, you have classical music, and you have flamenco music, right? And you have rock and roll, right? And you put them together like this. It's like a hand. But they're still like this, right? They're still individual things. Postmodernism, or whatever it's called, is like this. It is all of these things jumbled up like a fist, or just like smushed together to seamlessly interact with one another, these elements. This is what this score does. So he takes like, so Davis takes these disparate, beautiful pieces of music. He takes these African beats. Sometimes in rehearsal, we find ourselves like dancing, and we're dancing like, doing, so we're like doing this, but what's happening on the stage is freaking crazy. What is happening on the stage? We're talking about the crimes that these kids are being accused of. But it really is a lesson in what the justice system can do if it doesn't work right. And today, that means YouTube. It is not just me being a brown person. It is not just minorities. It is everyone is subject to weird injustice right now. So to come back to this piece and have it be in Detroit, which has, you look at Detroit and it is a massive city. One of the largest cities in America, in the United States of America, decimated. Houses torn down. Huge blocks where it's just grass inside the city, right? The inequality that has been allowed to happen in this country for years, unabated, to this day, this is why it makes me proud to do this piece. Art as a reflection of life. It helps you deal with the big things that happen to us as human beings. What we create around us as human beings is wonderful, but it's super dangerous. Humanity and what we have created for ourselves is amazing. But we are just flesh. We are just these puny little things that love and dream and hope and hate. And that's what doing the Central Park 5 is for me. It is showing the humanity of life, the joy of these kids playing in the park rambunctiously, youth not thinking anything of it. Youth, the joy of youth. That's what this piece is about for me. I'm putting it into a lens of seriousness. Peace.